In the book, The Advent Door by Jan Richardson, she writes a blessing for waking. This blessing could pound on your door in the middle of the night. This blessing could bang on your window, could tap dance in your hall, could set a dog loose in your room. You could hire a brass band to play outside your house. But what this blessing really wants is not merely your waking, but your company. This blessing wants to sit alongside you and keep vigil with you. This blessing wishes to wait with you. And so, though it is capable of causing a cacophony that could raise the dead, this blessing will simply lean toward you and sing quietly in your ear, a song to lull you not into sleep, but into waking. It will tell you stories that hold you breathless till the end. It will ask you questions you never considered, and have you tell it what you saw in your dreaming. This blessing will do all within its power to entice you into awareness, because it wants to be there, to bear witness, to see the look in your eyes on the day when your vigil is complete and all your waiting has come to its joyous end. Today we begin our season of waiting. Advent is a time of hope and anticipation. And we also begin to hear from the Gospel of Matthew. It's always fun to start at the beginning of the Gospel book on the very first page. But Matthew's Gospel has an end time or apocalyptic orientation that might be a little discerning or disorienting. The Gospel frames history in two ages: our present evil age that God would soon replace with a new age, often called the realm of God or the realm of heaven. The evil age is marked by the presence of Satan and by idolatry, sin, injustice, exploitation, sickness, violence, and death. Sounds like our age. And the new age will be characterized by the complete rule of God and the angels, and by authentic worship, forgiveness, mutual support, health, and eternal life. In the Gospel of Matthew, God acts through Jesus the Christ to effect the change. The birth, life, and resurrection are the first phase of the transformation, with the complete manifestation arriving in Jesus' second coming. And meanwhile, Matthew's community and the world today, we live in this conflict zone between the ages. In the midst of a broken, fear-filled, and uncertain world, we enter into this time of waiting and awakening called Advent. A time when we look forward to celebrate the first incarnation of Christ and also to anticipate his return. Advent is waiting and longing and yearning for Jesus to be born anew and to break into our broken world. It is a time filled with preparation and signs and symbols that all lead to a promised, hope-filled future. But if you're like me, unfortunately, our preparations are usually filled with signs and symbols of shopping and plastic credit cards that we think will lead to shiny promises of love that we then wrap in paper and we tuck under a tree to wait for that mystical, mythical, sentimental, sugar-coated day when the hopes and dreams of all-consuming delusional reciprocity come to pass. The day that entitled children of all ages believe that they will finally get what they deserve from that saint of all sinners, Santa the Claus, who comes like a thief in the night. No one knows the hour, or the day. So you best behave. Under that watchful eye of the elf on the shelf or old St. Nick himself. So be good, for goodness sake. These distorted signs and symbols of our sinful consumption corrupt the very story of how God entered the world in Jesus the Christ. They sidetrack and they distract us from preparing for and anticipating the hope that God promises. The hope is not found in the shiny stuff shopped for or hanging on a decorated tree or on a Christmas list that you've written to Santa or to loved ones. The promises and the hope of the incarnation are found in God's very word. Listen again to today's gospel, which speaks of this coming of the Lord. But what exact day and hour? No one knows that. Not even heaven's angels, not even the Son, only the Father knows. Then two will be working in the field, and one will be taken and one left. So stay awake. Stay awake because you have no idea what day the Lord will show up. But you do know this. If the homeowner had known what time of night the burglar would have arrived, he wouldn't have let the house be broken into. So be ready. Be ready with anticipation because you have no idea when the Son of Man is going to show up. The distractions of this season of consumption began on Thanksgiving, continued on Black Friday, and Lord help us, tomorrow on Cyber Monday. But Jesus isn't holding a gun to our heads to go out and shop until we drop. Jesus is telling us to be ready in entirely different ways. Be awake and be ready with anticipation. Anticipation is what Advent is really about. This time of year, we talk a lot about knowing about what's coming. We know how to be wakeful and ready. But this morning, I don't think the gospel really is about knowing at all. Jesus says to be ready. But being ready isn't the same as knowing this story or knowing what to look for. The community in Matthew's gospel had no more idea of what to look for than we do today. Jesus will return when and how we least expect. Jesus knows that we don't like this at all. We want to know. We want to be in control. We want to be ready. He gets our struggle with control. He knows that when we hear this familiar story that unfolds this month, that we're going to miss the most important thing. Being awake and ready have nothing to do with knowing and certainty. Advent waiting is instead about mystery, the unknown. It's about an openness about living in this unknown state, a state of hopefulness and possibility. And waiting for Jesus to break into our lives, for me anyway, is a little scary. Because like the owner of that house, knowing what to look for as a way of avoiding being robbed is only helpful when we assume that being robbed is a bad thing. Perhaps having an open, unknowing Advent attitude lets us be caught up into God's story. lets us be taken unaware, taken by the unaware grace of God in our lives, which is like a thief in the night. Because you and I, we are so unaware that Jesus has been staking out each one of us, our homes and every corner of our lives, unaware that He will break into your heart and your home and save you. Save you even in the process of turning your life upside down. The good news of Advent is that in the absence of knowing and being in control, we get robbed. We get robbed of our sinful consumer expectations that we place and prepare for at Christmas. We get robbed when we least expect it of our own controlling ways because God is not interested in our loss prevention programs, but only interested in saving each one of us. And we get robbed by the holy thief who wants to steal from us all of those things that keep us from the grace of God and keep us from loving one another. The good news of Advent is that in spite of our locking ourselves away, Jesus promises to continue to break into our lives over and over again. In her book, Accidental Saints, Pastor Nadia Bolz-Weber includes a chapter called A Thief in the Night, based on Matthew 24, the gospel we heard this morning. And I love this concept that she presents. She suggests that maybe we should make Advent lists, kind of like Christmas lists. Think about that for a minute. Instead of listing the things that we hope Santa will bring us, we instead write down those things that we want Christ to take from us. Lists that include the things that we want Him to steal. As Nadia says, pickpocketing the stupid junk in our homes, or absconding with our self-loathing or resentment. Maybe breaking in and taking off with our compulsive eating or drinking or doing drugs, or our love of money in the middle of the night. I love that idea. Advent lists instead of Christmas lists. I encourage you to ponder that, to make those lists of the things that you want Jesus to take from you, that keep you from fully experiencing God's grace and of being loved and sharing the love of Christ. May your Advent be filled with not knowing when or what unexpected thing that God will take or transform in your life.